In our series looking at the election manifestos of the various political parties, our political editor, Mzwandile Mbeje, is tonight in conversation with FF Plus leader Pieter Groenewald. Over to you, Mzwa.
Well, thank you very much, Francis. Indeed, we are here in Klerksdorp in the northwest, where we are having a conversation with the leader of the Freedom Front Plus. Last weekend, they unveiled their manifesto, and of course, they said quite a lot of things, which they say if they are given the opportunity to run municipality, they are definitely going to fix as far as they are concerned. But of course, there was something very interesting in their slogan, Francis. They basically said, it was very to the point, stop the decay. So tonight, we'll then look at that and find out exactly what it means. With me is the leader of Freedom Front Plus, Dr. Pieter Groenewald. Welcome to the SABC in Full View.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
I think your slogan is very succinct. Stop the decay. What does it mean?
Why we say stop the decay is that we are not a political party to trying to make false promises in this sense, to say, listen, if we become the government on the 1st of or the 2nd of November, that within a week everything will be fixed. It is a fact that the decay in local government is of such nature that we first say that we must stop it. We cannot allow it to go further. And the reason why we say stop the decay, I mean, all the political parties say, when we are the government, then we will ensure and make sure that there's better service delivery. The Freedom Front Plus say, you must ask those parties, but how are we going to do it? Now we say, if we say stop the decay, we say you first have to stop that, and then you have to build further to ensure that you have better service delivery.
How do you do that?
Firstly, we say there are 3 focus points. You have to focus on. Firstly, it's the employees. Secondly, financial management. And thirdly, we say we must ensure economic growth. Let's come to the employees. We say that at the moment, according to the Auditor General, 43% of employees in local government are not qualified for their jobs. So the first step is we will make a proper audit of all the employees in the municipality. And if you do not comply, then you must know that you are not going to stay in that job. I mean, let's take chief financial officers. 48% of them are not qualified to do their job. Therefore, we say, stop the decay by replacing and ensuring that you have employees who can do the job. And we also say, part of that is that we will use merit as a criteria when we employ people to do the job.
Are you speaking about a certain section of society, or are you speaking about South Africans in general?
I'm speaking about South Africans in general. You must understand one thing. The mission of the Freedom Front Plus is, yes, we say that we strive for self-determination for the Afrikaner and other minority groups. We do not apologize for that, but now we must remember, when it comes to local government, I always say, if, for instance, there's a water burst in the township or in the squatter camp, it involves everybody. It doesn't say that, oh, okay, the areas that's rich or good income, it does not affect them. Of course it affects them, because that water is getting lost and you have to pay for that. So when it comes to local government, we say it is for all the people in South Africa, because we all are one or other way part of one or other municipality.
You seem to be gaining some support if you've been looking at the by-elections, you actually have 4 wards as we sit here, but in 2016 you did not win a single ward. And then interestingly, all taken from the DA. Is that your target audience?
No, the target audience for the Freedom Front Plus are the voters of South Africa. Of course, you will have situations, and as you've mentioned, the by-elections, and yes, in 2019 we did take quite a lot of the supporters of the DA who voted for the Freedom Front Plus. But we must also remember, we also focused on those people who never voted before, and I'm talking about 2019. Therefore, we still continue with that people, and try to convince them to vote because every vote counts. But if you say that, do we specifically target DA wards, we say no. We participate in all the wards. We are participating in 3,158 wards. Not all of them are DA. But yes, their voters from the DA has a better chance for voting for the Freedom Front Plus. But what we're also specifically looking at is at those municipalities where we think that we can be kingmakers, because we're going to have coalitions, and that, if we talk about focus, we talk about that and those, can I say, the cities, we're talking about 20 municipalities, and then we're talking about the 8 metros, but amongst the 8 metros, we're participating in all 8 of them. There are, for instance, Port Elizabeth and Nelson Mandela Bay Metro, Cape Town, Johannesburg and Tshwane, where we think that we can ensure that there's a coalition government after the 1st of November, and we want to be part of that coalition.
When you were formed, that's back in 1994 actually, you did fairly well, and I know at the time it was just Freedom Front when General Viljoen formed it. And then obviously later on, so you had to include other parties like Conservative Party. You did fairly well. In the National Assembly, for example, you got, I think, 9. And then from there, it was either 3 or 4. And then in 2019, you shot up to 10. So what do you attribute that rise in support to?
I think what attributed quite a lot is the fact that people started to understand the electoral system in South Africa, namely that they started to understand that you don't have to vote for the strongest or the biggest opposition party to beat the ANC. They realized that each and every vote counts. You can vote for any opposition party. Your vote still counts. So that played a major role. Then the other thing is that, yes, and I know people say, but you started again with the slogan of fight back. And I said that in any country's history, there are various times in history where the voters have to stand up and say, listen, we had enough now. We have to fight back with our votes. And I think 2019 was an ideal situation for that. So the voters received the correct message from the Freedom Front Plus and say, listen, and it links up with stop the decay. This is, we had enough. It's time that we stand up and stop the decay, and that was the time we say we had to stand up and fight back.
Do you see your rise in support as part of the affirmation of your original message as the Freedom Front Plus? That you remember you wanted the Volksstaat. You've just alluded to self-determination. So do you think that is the message that perhaps your dream is getting towards realization?
I think yes, in a certain sense you're quite correct, in this sense that, for instance, when we talk about self-determination, you must understand self-determination, that worldwide there's a movement towards self-determination. Let's take Brexit, for instance. Brexit is nothing else than a certain form of self-determination for the British people to say we don't want to be prescribed by the European Union. And in South Africa, if we look at the Western Cape, there's a strong movement. If you look at local government, people say, but we will have to take certain issues to ensure that we do it by ourselves. For instance, potholes. The community is starting to get involved in the government, and that's part of self-determination.
In South Africa, when you talk about self-determination, you can't not speak about apartheid, because for the majority of South Africans, you remind them of the apartheid days. Are you not worried that the message is that perhaps you are hankering back to the days of apartheid?
No. I'm on record, and our previous leaders are on record, and we said quite clearly, we don't want to go back to apartheid. We believe in modern self-determination, where the people have more powers on lower levels, where they can make decisions for themselves in the best interest of the community. And you must always remember, there's a section 235 in the Constitution that determines that any community that wishes to have self-determination may have self-determination. So it's not unconstitutional. It's not the fact that we want to go back to apartheid. Nobody wants to go back to apartheid. We are modern. We say that the moment you recognize diversity and the moment you recognize self-determination and work together. For instance, look at the preamble of the Constitution of South Africa. It says, South Africa belongs to all who live in it, united in our diversity. So we know that we have diversity, but we say that yes, we want that self-determination where the community can take control of their own future.
Okay. By community, I mean, you and I are sitting here. When, let's say, that self-determination is granted, so do you mean yourself and myself? Or you mean people who may look like you and people who may look like me?
No. It will be, to say self-determination, if it is self-determination for the Afrikaner, then yes. Mostly it will be people looking like me. But the Zulu, the late Zulu king, said that if you're going to take my Ngonyama trust, I will take and ensure that we become a separate country. Then those people will look like you. But that doesn't mean that we are opponents. It does not mean that we cannot work together to build South Africa. We must take hands. And when I say self-determination, let's take Afrikaans for English.
Okay, I get you. We know very well Verwoerd with his policy of separate development, which in all instances meant apartheid. And then from what you are saying here, you're talking about self-determination. But as you unpack self-determination, it basically leads to the same thing. Because if, let's say, it were to be granted, so the people who look like you will be on your own. People who look like me will be on your own.
No, so, you're wrong.
But that's what you've just said, Doctor.
Okay, but you must also remember, you must understand modern self-determination. Let's take, for instance, Quebec in Canada. In Canada, you have Quebec. Everything is, the language is French. They have their own legislature, but they're still part of Canada. In the United States of America, you have 50 states. In Texas, for instance, if you commit a murder there, you will get the death penalty, but you won't get it in the state of New York. That's self-determination, but there will be people looking like you who will also be in that self-determination. But, for instance, I will have the right.
Will they be subservient to the larger group?
No, it will be equal rights. It will be equal rights, but I will have my mother tongue language in my schools and my universities. And if you want one for English, you can have it. You have no problem with that.
All right. I think the examples of United States and Canada may be a bit, they may not necessarily be perfect for South Africa. You know, America is a federal state, for example, so we are not one.
But we must move to that.
So you're basically advocating for that?
Of course. That's a step. That's a step in the right direction.
Okay. When it comes to apartheid, as Freedom Front Plus, do you regret that the country once went through this, that there was a situation where human beings were separated based on the color of their skin? So do you condemn apartheid in the strongest terms, that it should never have happened?
I don't want to go back to apartheid. Be very clear. I never voted even for the Nationalist Party in my life. But you must always judge history in its time. I regret, for instance, the Anglo-Boer War, where 37,000 women and children of the Boers were killed in concentration camps. The farms were burned down. And the scorched earth policy of the British against the Boers. That is regrettable. But that is history. But if you go, for instance, and you say, listen, South Africa stopped with apartheid, that would have been wrong. History developed. We're in 1994 now. And I don't want to go back to apartheid. I put it categorically that I don't want to go back. No.
So you agree with the United Nations that this was a crime against humanity?
That is a story of another day. In fact, I know that it was in the General Assembly, and I was also, we must be quite clear that it was never accepted by, for instance, the Security Council, because or else they would have come and said, right, let's have some international court for these crimes. But you must understand one thing. I was not part of the government.
No, I think I understand that,
yeah.
And I understand you perfectly. I think my question is pretty simple, Dr. Groenewald. Do you agree with the United Nations that apartheid was a crime against humanity?
I want to say the following to answer. It's not a matter of yes or no.
Sure.
You must understand. You know, it's like I ask you, do you still beat your wife? Yes or no? It's not simple as that.
Okay.
Because if you say no, so you did beat her at one time. Why? It's not a yes or a no. I say judge it by the time of history, the context of that. That was part of the Nationalist Party who had to deal with that. I say I don't want to go back to apartheid. It was part of the history of South Africa. You can see it as regrettable for the black people, but you must also see the Anglo-Boer War as part of the history of South Africa as regrettable towards the Boers and the British. You must understand that very clearly.
So clearly I'm not getting an answer here.
You're not going to just get a yes or a no from me.
Yes.
What I will say to you, you must judge it in the time and the context of history. I want to build a better future. I don't want to build a better past. This is 2021. It's no use we're going back to those days. Let's build a better future for everyone in South Africa.
All right, let's leave it in that way. I was speaking about apartheid because it actually disadvantaged the majority of South Africans, black people. As a result, they do want to be like their counterparts. They do want to live a similar life. But clearly, because of the disadvantages, it's still a long road. So this government, at some point, introduced affirmative action to try and right the wrongs of the past. You have just said you are done with the past, you're looking to the future. Here is a policy which says, let's right the wrongs of the past as a united nation. Freedom Front Plus is on record, no for affirmative action. Why?
And I can confirm, no affirmative action, no black economic empowerment. And the reason is simple. If you look in South Africa, the people in South Africa, by far the majority of the people are black people.
Yes.
If you go to our universities, there are 3 times more black students than white students in South Africa. And I say it will be unfair to be creating a new dispensation where young white children, just because they're white, they've never been part of apartheid, that they are now disadvantaged because of the past. The Freedom Front Plus says stop affirmative action. Firstly, we said there's a natural process. 2021, there are more black qualified professionals in South Africa than whites. Therefore, we say merit. If you have the qualifications, yes, you must get the job. But it's unfair to say you're a white child, you cannot get the university bursary, you cannot qualify to go and study medicine because you must have higher marks than some of the others. So let us not create a new disadvantaged group to address the wrongs of the past. It's as simple as that. And you go to the young students at university and ask them, do you want a position because of affirmative action? They say, no, I want to be there on merit. But the big problem is with affirmative action. It is misused by the ANC government for cadre deployment. It's a smokescreen to put their people there to get the situation where we're enhancing corruption.
Who is the face of poverty in South Africa?
Who is that?
The face of poverty. When we talk about poverty, what picture comes to mind first?
Well, from my perspective, it's black, white, colored Indians. I will take you to squatter camps of white people. They're poor.
Sure, I accept that.
Yeah.
But you don't have to take me to black informal settlements. If you drive out here,
yes,
you just see them, they're all over the show.
Yeah.
So which clearly shows they are the face of poverty in the country.
Okay.
How do you then make sure that those people also get to benefit?
We will make sure, if we can come back to the local government election, that at this moment, the government gives about 8.99 billion rands for the poor of the poorest as far as water and sanitation is concerned. They only spent 1.8 billion of that. The Freedom Front Plus will ensure that those poor people, that they get the 8.99 billion from the government. Because what happened to that other billions of rands? So that is fair. That is what the Freedom Front Plus wants to see. And let's fight poverty to ensure that those monies that is allocated to the poor, that they really get the benefit. It's the same with black economic empowerment. Who gets the benefit of black economic empowerment? The poor people if you drive around? No. It's the black elite, and that's connected. That's why I say BE doesn't stand for black economic empowerment. It's black elite enrichment. Do you know what we need? We want, and it's Professor Yanni Rousseau used the word, BEST, black economic skills transfer. That's what we need. We need to build the economy to ensure that jobs are created so that those poor people, that they can have a job, a decent job, that will uplift them from their poverty. So the Freedom Front Plus, we say we will play a major role to ensure, just for that they get their monies and uplift the poor.
Then you get granted your wish of self-determination, and then generally the white people are well off, the black people are poor. So how do you then empower those people? Because you would have separated them.
No.
In case you pursue that self-determination.
No. Remember I said it's a process. At this moment in South Africa, the majority of the middle income of people are black people.
But it's proportionate to the population.
No, it's not necessarily. It was a natural process that developed, where they went to university, as I said, got qualified. But when you say, no, wait, when you say, because it seems you think that if we talk about self-determination, you are at the last point where there's a separate state. And we say, it's not as simple as that. It's a process. You have For instance, you can have a province where people generate more money and where they can uplift the poor for that. That's why in South Africa we have an urbanization process. People are going there. Don't see it as part as black poor, white rich. That does not consist.
Okay. You've been speaking about the students going to university. Are you aware that most of the black students that have gone to university or that are at university are getting assistance from government because of the active intervention? Why? Because they cannot afford compared to the majority of white people. Yes, there are those who are also getting assistance from government. So if then we are not to be active in terms of assisting the black majority that is poor, they will forever be left in the poverty line.
I never said that it means you should not assist. You talk about the poor black. Remember, where do you get the money to assist them? From the taxpayers. If I take your argument, then I would say, but because you see the whites are the rich people, so they are contributing. And I don't say that you mustn't take some of those money and attribute and ensure that students can go to university. Of course they must go. So you take that money, take your argument, from the white taxpayers, and then you assist and you uplift the poor. So it's a win-win situation. But it is not just a matter of black and white. As I said, it was a natural process, and affirmative action is not about the fact to say that, yes, you going to be assisted just because you were black. We say affirmative action is to put people in certain jobs which are not qualified, and that is wrong, because that causes the fact that the economy doesn't grow in South Africa. That causes that we have more unemployed people. And the proof is as follows. Since 1994, it's 2021. Why do we have then the highest unemployment rates ever? What did the government do? What did they do with the money? I've just used the example of the 8.9 billion rands that's allocated. I don't complain about the 8.9 billion. That must go to the poor. I say it's good, but I'm complaining because it does not reach the poor. That's a problem.
In structures where the possibility of people not getting there, so don't you think the affirmative action assists in breaking the barriers where perhaps you just have either all male or all male and white, but you need diversity? You've just quoted the preamble of the Constitution, our unity, our diversity. In so many instances, we have seen companies being dominated by male and white. So if we are not active in breaking that by affirmative action, how will it happen? I mean, how many years should it take?
Now my answer is as follows. Did we ever thought about the idea that maybe that's because we don't have people come and invest in South Africa because they are prescribed who and what they must employ? And that's why we don't build the economy. And that's why there are no jobs. But if you take that situation, for instance, and you say, if merit is the criteria, you will get the best people to do the job. But that you say, let's take affirmative action. You go and ask the rugby players, do they want to have a position because of affirmative action, or else they would have never been able to become a Springbok? They will say, no, I'm not a quota player. Do you know what must happen? At school level, we must start to build up. We must improve our educational system. That's where the problem is. And it's got nothing to do with color.
You're talking about the economy, the building of the economy. But there is an issue which is very thorny, the issue of land. And also you are very clear you are opposed to land reform.
Yeah.
How do you then get the majority of South Africans to be part of the activity of the economy so that that which we are talking about of building the economy happens? Why are you even opposed to land reform?
It's quite simple. Because land is not the problem that we do not develop the economy. South Africa has more than enough land. Land is not the issue. Land is...
But who owns that land?
Well, if you go to a city, for instance, they're supposed to have a planning department. And it is always like that all the years, all over the world. If you need more land, then you take and buy the land, and we are in favor of willing buyer, willing seller. It's available. It's not a matter that the land's not available, but because of expropriation without compensation, then you get businesses that say, but I will not come and invest in South Africa because I'm not sure about my assets. So I say, it's a fundamental mistake, and I'm very serious about it. It's a political play ball to use land and make it the scapegoat for everything that goes wrong. There's enough land.
If I want land, for example, and then I can't access it, it's a willing buyer, willing seller. I don't have the money, but I want land. I want to participate in the economy, and I have ideas. I know how to do it. So how do you accommodate someone like myself?
You can only accommodate the person if that person's got the ability and the skills to, let's for instance, take farms. I also want a farm. You say you want the land.
Yes.
You know what? I also would like to have a farm. I also want that land. But I can't afford it at this time. It's as simple as that. So what is good for you is good for me.
Yes, but all we're saying is currently the majority of the land is in white hands. It's in the hands of,
true. That's not
in
true.
the private hands.
No, that's true.
Okay.
Now, there was a proper order done, not by the government. That's not correct. In fact, if you go to the urban areas, 72% of the areas are where blacks are.
I'm not talking about urban areas.
Okay, you can go to the
that's
farms.
not where agriculture is happening.
Okay.
I'm talking about places which, like your northwest, this province, I think KZN, Limpopo, Mpumalanga, all those provinces where there are farms where people are interested to really farm, but they can't get access. They want to be part of the economic activity that you're speaking about.
Okay, let's like that. Let's be fair. The land is there. You go and look at the annual reports of land reform. They got the land from the owners. They bought it. They gave it to black people who wanted to farm. And it is admitted in the annual reports. 90% of those projects failed. So you want the farm, I give it to you, but it failed. In the annual reports, it says 93% of the beneficiaries, when it came to land restitution, didn't want the land. They wanted the money, which they got. So to say, and that's why I say with great respect, that the government is misusing the land issue as a political scapegoat. Because there is land, the departments got the land, they gave it to black people to farm, 90% failed, and the Freedom Front Plus has warned them and said, you cannot just give land to someone, you must also assist them to just give you an idea. But they don't want to say that. The Freedom Front Plus told the government, firstly, you must stop the corruption amongst the civil servants when it comes to land reform. Secondly, if you put people on the farm, and you talk specifically about farmland, ensure that you can assist them to ensure that they make a success. So why 90% failure?
What do you think creates tensions, particularly in the farms? I mean, we've seen farm murders. The majority of the murders would be the workers, but of course we've seen farmers being killed. So why do you think there's that tension? Don't you think this question also needs to be addressed, to try and address that question?
Well, if you go and look at the report of the police, there was a commission on farm attacks already in 2003 by Jackie Celebi. And they stated that one cause, for instance, is racism. The second one is criminality. The third one is the land issue. But they also said that certain statements by politicians is not acceptable. So there are reasons. You ask, why do they do it?
Yes.
But if you ask the government...
That's what I want to go to now quickly, because we don't have much time.
Okay, sorry.
A couple of weeks ago, a farmer in KZN shot a 17-year-old who wanted the livestock of his father. 17-year-old was shot by the farmer. Why do people act like that? I mean, as the Freedom Front Plus, what is your reaction to that?
Well, firstly, I don't know whether you saw the video. The farmer was attacked by a mob. And we still have to wait for the court case because they said it was an accident. So first wait for that. But you know what? I can give you examples also in KZN where a black boy was in a tree and shot by the farmer. And the farmer said he thought it was a baboon. But you know what? The farmer is a black man. And I can give you the facts.
Okay.
So don't use an exceptional case to generalize.
All right, it's fine. On that exceptional case, what are you saying as Freedom Front Plus?
Well, firstly, I say that if it was just purely wanted to shoot, that's not acceptable. But in this case, we still have to see what the real facts are. There's one problem. When we have such specific incidents, then the politicians try to say it's racism. You can even go to Phoenix. I mean, in Phoenix, the minister, Bekitsele, said it was blatant racism. You know what? It is because of Bekitsele and the police who could not protect, listen clearly what I say, who couldn't protect the community. Now I want to say, it's because of the fact that the police services cannot protect the farmers that you get these farm attacks.
Sure. Is it acceptable that a farmer would shoot a 17 unarmed black young man?
Just for the fun of it, of course it's not acceptable, but
all he wanted was to get his father's livestock.
That's your version. That's your version. There was not only one 17-year-old boy. There were quite a lot of people. That's according to the video. But then I also say to you, a farmer and anybody has a constitutional right to defend his or her own life. And if it gets to a situation where you have to shoot someone to defend your own life and save your own life, then it is constitutional. But let's hope we can get away from this. We must stop crime in South Africa. And it is because of the fact that the police services do not comply to their constitutional obligation to protect me and you. So we have to defend ourselves.
Well, we really are running out of time. So Cape Independence Party wants a referendum in the Western Cape. The Freedom Front Plus has supported the referendum. So what are you hoping?
Yeah, well, we don't support the Cape Independence Party.
No, not party. I'm talking about the referendum.
The Cape Exit.
For the Cape Independence.
Yeah, the Cape Exit.
Yes.
You talk about the Cape Exit movement. Yes, we support it. And the reason we support it, that's part of the process of self-determination. And listen very carefully. It says the Western Cape.
Yes.
And if you go to the Western Cape, you will see, because it's not only white people, it's brown people and black people. So the ideal of self-determination, we say yes, we support Cape Exit for their strive for self-determination and for independence of the Western Cape.
Are you happy with the current state of affairs as a country united in diversity? Are you happy or are you not happy?
No, I'm not happy. No, and I said that and I said that to the president myself. I said in State of the Nation address, we have to talk about this unity in diversity. But if you do not recognize my mother tongue language at the university, if you discriminate against my people just because they are white, and let me use the example of eThekwini. No, wait a minute.
We don't have time now. We don't have time now. I have to, unfortunately, cut you short. Okay. I just need one last question. Which municipalities are you hoping to back in 15 seconds?
Well, we say that we can play king makers in the metros of Nelson Mandela Bay, Tshwane and Johannesburg, and then there are about 20 municipalities that we think that we will be able to be king makers. So it's as simple as that. And if we're a king maker, then we are part of the government.
Will you work with EFF?
No, we will not work with the EFF or the ANC.
DA?
DA, yes. We are in a coalition with the DA already.
Mashaba?
Yes. He's got more or less the same values and ideologies as we have in a certain sense, so we will find each other on that one.
Thank you very much, sir. Well, there was a conversation with the leader of the Freedom Front Plus, Dr. Pieter Groenewald, on a range of issues, basically talking about the issues of election, but of course, delving into the current political situation, putting the stance of the Freedom Front Plus on a number of issues. As we will link back to the break back in Johannesburg.
Thank you very much, Zwandile Mbeje, our political editor, in conversation with the FF+. That was an interesting discussion, and another one again tomorrow at 6 o'clock. He will be in conversation with the PAC. Join us then. And join me. We take a short break, but I'll be back with all your news on the Full View. Stay